Well, guys, the only thing better than Thug Nasty's performance last night were those camo shorts. We're talking about both right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, we just broke down Uriah Hall, Anderson Silva, the main event. But I think we would be remiss if we did not mention the co-main, Mr. Thug Nasty himself, the Arkansas native, Mr. Camo Shorts, Bryce Mitchell. What a great grappling performance he had.
Yeah, and unusual star in the making, but
yeah,
I think they have one on their hands with Bryce Mitchell.
I agree.
Not to take anything from Andre Fili, because I think he has star potential as well, and he's been around for a while, hasn't been able to get the streaks that he wanted, but Bryce Mitchell looked very, very, very good. And I think, he's one of those guys who's unapologetically himself. And that's the thing, is authenticity sells in this sport and pretty much across the board. When you try to act like other people, it never works out for you, especially if you're, let's just say, if you're an MMA and you try to act like Conor McGregor. We've already got one of those guys. Yep. Bryce Mitchell acts like Bryce Mitchell, and people come to see him be himself.
Yeah, that is for sure. I mean, he's just everything about him. The name, Thug Nasty, the camouflage shorts. Yeah. He's just this country boy from Arkansas.
With some crazy jiu-jitsu.
Who will beat you up on a second's notice.
Yeah.
And then tell you to tell my friend I said hello after in his country accent.
Yeah.
There's something about it that works. He's in an interview with Megan O'Leary after the fight, in the midst of a pandemic, and then he just like spits this big spit on the presumably on the floor. You couldn't see off screen. I mean, there's just something about him. He's as country as it gets.
Yeah.
We live in Texas. We're from Georgia.
Right.
I went to high school with people like Bryce Mitchell.
Yeah.
Like not that could fight like him,
no,
but had that sort of demeanor. So I'm about it. I like it.
Big fan.
And I think that he really shows some high-level grappling. And the thing about it is he's got 13 wins, I think 9 of them by submission. We know his jiu-jitsu is high level. He's a black belt. He's in his mid-20s. He's got a very tenacious style of jiu-jitsu. But one thing that really impressed me was his tenacity in the takedown itself.
Yes.
When you think about certain jiu-jitsu aces that go into the sport, you see that when the fight does end up on the ground, or they're able to get a trip, or something happens that, the fight lends itself to some grappling, you see them able to, Nate Diaz would be a great example. They're able to submit from the back, Tony Ferguson, things like that. But you don't normally see a jiu-jitsu ace really push the pace as far as tenacious takedowns go. Going in on the first shot on the double leg, if you don't get that, move into the single, then go into the trip, covering a lot of distance, setting up the takedowns with certain jabs and strikes. So I was really impressed by that, just his tenacity. He looked like a wrestler almost that has great submission skills.
Right. Well, they were talking about how he's been training with the University of Arkansas, or Arkansas State, one of their wrestling teams, and it's clearly paid off for him.
Yeah.
The misconception about jiu-jitsu, and this misconception is held by a lot of jiu-jitsu practitioners and people that run jiu-jitsu schools, is that jiu-jitsu starts on the ground.
Right.
When in fact, no fight starts on the ground. And there is curriculum and techniques and mechanics in jiu-jitsu that require 2 people to be standing. A lot of that just seems to get brushed over. And, people will talk about it in gyms, but oftentimes never let their students start from the feet, never let their students, try these takedowns and stuff. Sometimes it's a lack of space. Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge. And it's really a disservice, because there's some really impressive stuff that came from judo that translates well into mixed martial arts that's in jiu-jitsu, but you just don't see it. And all the way up to the highest levels, like in the UFC, you don't see people utilizing jiu-jitsu on the feet, but Bryce Mitchell definitely was, and he's chaining together this new collegiate style wrestling with his high level jiu-jitsu. And his weakest hand is definitely his hands, and I think he made some improvements on that. He did pretty good, and what he's doing right now is disguising the punches, because they're not the best, with takedowns and things like that. So I think he's on to something good there, and he didn't neglect jiu-jitsu on the feet.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you know, where we train, Gracie, Baja, Texas, we're lucky enough in our backyard to have one of the world's best jiu-jitsu practitioners and
programs.
Coaches. Yeah,
we have
Professor
world champs.
Draculino.
Yeah.
We got world champs in the gym, and you know, just the other day we're in class and there wasn't as many people as normal, and so he said today for sure. All of the grappling rounds were starting on the feet.
Right.
And I think you're right, it does get overlooked a lot. And you do see guys, like I said, like an A. Diaz, where if he finds himself in the guard, he's very dangerous and he can submit you. But you don't see him pushing those takedowns and going for those takedowns because, you know, in sport jiu-jitsu, you have two people that are committing to compete against one another in jiu-jitsu. So you see a lot of guard pulling. You see a lot of people that will concede the feet and just go right to their butt and then, you know, do the little butt scooting and all of that, which is that's great. There's techniques. There's people that are incredible at those techniques. But in MMA, nobody is going to concede to that. No. Especially if they're a striker who thinks that they have an advantage over you in that area of MMA. So in order to make your submission skills and your pressure grappling and your advancement of position on the ground and control time happen in the first place, you've got to figure out how to get that fighter on the ground. That's what Khabib did so well. How do you get the fight to where you want it? And Bryce Mitchell has absolutely figured out how to take the fight to where he wants. Right. I mean, he controlled, I think it was 10 minutes and 17 seconds of the fight. Wow. So if you're talking about a 3-round fight, that's 2 rounds. That's more than 2. Rounds, yeah. That's almost 70% of the fight. Bryce Mitchell was on top. Right. And so it's very difficult to win a fight where you're being controlled on the bottom on the ground for 70% of the time.
Right. And Andre Fili, he's no slouch on the ground and in the grappling exchanges. I think they said he came into this fight with 31 successful takedowns or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember the stat specifically, but he's needless to say, he's not a bad grappler, and he definitely knows what he's doing. He's very well-rounded. People tend to look over that when they think about Andre Fili. But if I said, what type of fighter is Andre Fili to you? Off the top of your head, you'd go, well, he's pretty good at striking, pretty good at grappling, pretty good at jiu-jitsu, pretty good at wrestling. He's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Yeah. That's exactly what Touchy-Feely is. He's one of those guys that grew up in a gym that was a mixed martial arts gym, but had masters of each thing in Alpha Male.
But very wrestling heavy. Like it was started by wrestlers, you know. So he even though he wasn't one of those guys like, you know, Division I All-American, he's around them every day, and so his wrestling is, you know,
and he moves like a high-level striker. Exactly. So I think he's a tough night out for a lot of people. Bryce Mitchell knew that he would have the disadvantage standing up with him, but knew that if he got him to the ground, or he had the hunch that if he got him to the ground, he would probably be able to get over on him, and that's exactly what happened. His grappling skills and his dominance and his control from the top is great. You saw some Khabib style stuff that he was doing with the legs, some of those mechanics where you tie up the legs and try to cover. You know, a lot of people, they advance position, but they forget what they took already in the first place. Yeah. And if you take something in jiu-jitsu, you should always keep it. Yeah. You should never give it back for something else.
If the legs are out of play, they're staying out of play.
Right, right. Khabib's a master at that. It looks like Bryce Mitchell's very good at that as well. He didn't leave anything behind and was really able to implement his game plan. I thought it was impressive, and I also thought some of the striking was good. You know, that's obviously not his best attribute as a fighter, but
he's improving.
He dropped Touchy-Feely, which is a feather in the cap for him, and I think moving forward he's going to continue to have this heavy grappling style with evolving striking to complement it.
I think he's on the rise. Yeah. I think he's a star in the making. Yeah. I do think that his striking did look better. He threw some very unconventional kicks last night. You know, he showed some wrinkles, and we all knew that his game plan is to go for the grappling here, get Touchy-Feely to the ground and impose his will. But he did show the fans and the UFC management last night, hey, I've been working on my striking. Yeah. I'm going to set up some of my takedowns with some good striking. And I was very impressed by that. One thing I think people should know is that Andre Touchy-Feely brought Gary Tonin in for this entire fight camp to work with him. And for those of you that don't know who Gary Tonin is, he's a member of the Danaher Death Squad, arguably the best jiu-jitsu, certainly the best no-gi jiu-jitsu group in the world right now, led by the legendary coach John Danaher. These guys are ADCC world champions. They're no-gi every no-gi promotion or jiu-jitsu promotion in the country right now is chomping at the bit to get these guys. Gary Tonin's one of the best no-gi grapplers in the world.
Yeah.
And Touchy Fili brought him in for the entire camp to work with him on his MMA grappling.
It's a very smart move on his part.
Smart move on Touchy Fili's part, but it still wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean,
to get Bryce Mitchell off of him. They've
got some good grappling going on in Arkansas. I don't know if they're grappling bears like they do in Russia, but I think he choked out a deer.
I think it's mountain lions.
He choked out a deer, and I don't know. I saw the footage of it, but he submitted a deer and killed it.
He's not going to be getting any PETA sponsorships for that one.
But I don't think that's what he's looking for. Team Real Outdoors or whatever. And if you look at it, Conor McGregor was the only other fighter to get his own pants. So kudos to Bryce Mitchell. He was able. That was a smart move. It was a power. Chael Sonnen talks about it a lot. We love our Chael Sonnen and Uncle Chael, but he talks about it. Never call for something that you're not going to get. It makes you look weak, and it takes all your power away. He made a nice little suggestion, a request, if you will. I want some camo pants. And that happened. That was a move that made him look like he has some power. And whether the power's real or not, I seem to think it is a little bit real. Yeah. It worked, and it was smart. And now other people are talking about the camo pants. Man, I would like some camo pants too. Maybe I need to figure out what style. Like Sean O'Malley might come out and say, "I want some tie-dye pants."
Right,
you know?
right.
So I think there's going to be some fun in the new Venom deal in 2021 to come from these types of things. And Bryce Mitchell is a bit of a trailblazer in that regard.
I always love when somebody can make a small ask that nobody ever thought about before and get it. Like you said, it's a power move, but it's a small ask. It's not, you're not asking for the world. You're just asking for some camouflage shorts because you're just a country boy and that's how you roll.
And Reebok makes it happen.
Dana makes it happen. And then people are like, what? Hold on.
I can do that.
If Mitchell gets his camo pants, as you said, Sean O'Malley, I got to get my tie-dye pants. And, other people I'm sure will come up with creative things, but it will always have been started. The genesis of that was the camo pants with Bryce Mitchell. So, everybody was complaining about the uniform at first. A lot of UFC fighters were because they lost some sponsorship money. They weren't allowed to put certain brands on. There's, basically only Monster and, a couple others. And so then it was like, well, we don't have an identity anymore. Well, Bryce, I always love when somebody comes up with a creative workaround, and I got to give Bryce Mitchell credit for that.
Yeah, it's the old line: "Give us what we want, not what we expect."
Exactly.
So he's doing that. I think with the record that he's got, 13 or 14-1, he's on the way. And I personally, if we go back to the X's and O's of Bryce Mitchell, I think he poses a lot of problems for the top 10, some of the guys in the top 10 at 145. I think what they should do is keep moving him down the ladder little by little. He was 15 last night, so I think he might move up. Andre Fili wasn't ranked, but if you give him a top
I'd say he moves
guy,
up at least 2 points probably.
Yeah, but there's a lot of high-level strikers in the 145 division. It's a stacked division, make no mistake about it. Everybody knows what they're doing down there. But a lot of the bigger names at 145 are primarily strikers, and they're good grapplers, but they're not quite Bryce Mitchell on the ground.
Right.
And I think if he continues to get his striking going and that becomes a threat and people don't have to just not worry about his hands, people don't really have to worry about Ben Askren's hands. He's not going to knock you out, but you better watch out for that takedown. Well, now Bryce Mitchell, you better watch out for that takedown, but he can also drop you with a shot.
He's got a question mark kick that'll knock your socks off.
Yeah, he was coming with some heat. Yeah. So I think he's another couple fights away from fighting some really good top 10 competitors, and I think he could win some of those fights. Stylistically, he matches up well against some of those high-level strikers. I'm not going to say I think he would beat Yair Rodriguez right now, but if he got Yair
on the ground, Yair might be in some serious trouble.
And it seems like he knows the distance very well. With that's what jiu-jitsu on the feet, what we were talking about a second ago, is all about, is covering distance, knowing when you're safe, knowing when you're in the danger zone, and then closing the distance. He seems to know that very well. If he can stay away from Yair's danger zone, he can close the distance, and I think that would be a tough night. And other fighters like Yair Rodriguez are probably noticing Bryce Mitchell right now.
He's on their radar for sure. One thing I would like to point out is he got hit hard by Andre Fili in the second round. He got rocked there for a second. So he did show the ability to maintain his composure. Fili hit him clean. I think it was with a straight right or straight left.
Country strong on the chin.
Yeah, and he was able to recover well. He shook off the cobwebs. He regained his composure, and I think that showed a lot about how he can handle adversity, because that was a great shot.
Yeah, we had a feeling he was tough. That kind of solidified that, he's a pretty tough guy. And I was, I hate to see anybody get injured, but we do watch it, the most violent sport there is. And it was nice on Halloween night to see, when he stood up after the win, there was a bloody eye, and it almost looked like a costume, like a Halloween costume. So I'm sure it didn't bother him that much. They probably, it was probably looked worse than it actually was. And I think he delivered, and being a co-main event, now we're only moving up the ladder. I think next we're going to see him on a main card of a pay-per-view, or maybe headlining his own card on ESPN Plus or ESPN. I think if they market him right and they put a little money behind him, you've got another star on your hands.
Yeah, I think so. And I really do like also his approach to the weight cutting thing. He said, listen, I'm going in the gym. They wanted me to work on my strength a little bit because I'm a small 45er. But he said, I feel like I'm like a Frankie Edgar. I'm not going to ever be the biggest guy in this division. And I'm not really focused on that. I'm focused on being as strong as I can be within my frame and working on my skills, which I think is a breath of fresh air, because everybody's just trying to suck down to the lightest weight they can get to and then, rehydrate back up. But you do see a lot of people fade in later rounds, and you saw a tenacious, high-octane fighter from bell to bell.
Right.
15 minutes. Bryce Mitchell looks like a 5-round fighter as far as gas tank goes. So I do think that does lend to his style well. And I don't think he should try to cut to 135 because he could probably make it. I think 145 is the division he needs to be in right now. He has his game plan, a tenacious, straightforward grappling style of martial arts, which does, if you are good at that, I believe that it negates some of the size disadvantage, because if you've ever grappled with somebody who's just got tremendous pressure, they could be 20 pounds lighter than you and they feel like they're 200 pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a smart move on his part. He's built well for 145, and a lot of people cut too far to get 145, and some of the bodies down there, like a Max Holloway almost, he had a tough time making 155 when he stepped in on short notice. That shows you just how big somebody like Max Holloway is. I think Bryce Mitchell's doing the right thing, and he clearly seemed very hydrated, very well conditioned for this fight. I can't give enough praise to that guy. He did a very good job, and I can't wait to see what he does next. And Touchy-Feely, he deserves another good shot, another good fight after this one. Even though he lost to a tough competitor, and I think his stock didn't go down really last night either. Yeah,
I hate the word journeyman in a lot of ways, and
he seems too young to be a journeyman.
Yeah, But Andre Fili is a guy that if you have a new prospect and you want to see if he's real, and you throw him in there with Andre Fili, somebody who's been at Alpha Male for over a decade, who's been, I think he's got 16 fights in the UFC.
It's incredible.
He just being in the UFC for 16 fights without being cut is a feat that I don't know the stats on that, but I would say that's less than 10% of the people that ever fight in the UFC. So, Andre Fili deserves to be here, and a win over him for Bryce Mitchell is definitely a feather in his cap. So
absolutely.
I'm excited to see what he does next.
Me too.
Guys, let us know, who do you want to see Bryce Mitchell fight next? And guys, also, by the way, we set up an email account because we love talking with you guys in the comments. It's one of our favorite things about this channel is having these discussions and debates, and we see things from a different perspective. We get to hear what you guys think, and so we want to start incorporating some questions, and they can either be typed out questions or video questions. The email address is thebarnhillbros, BROS, @gmail.com. Send us your questions. They can be in video form. If they're in video form, we'll put the video on our one of our videos. If they're just text, we'll read them out. But we love engaging with you guys. It's fun. It's one of our favorite parts about the channel. Nick and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, we have a great time. You guys come up with some great questions. Some of y'all might need to come up with your own YouTube channel. We'll definitely subscribe and try to engage with you guys as well if that ever happens. But yeah, you guys keep the channel moving. We keep growing. I don't know if you guys have watched, but if you take notice, we're definitely growing, and we really love it. We have to thank you guys for it because without you, we wouldn't be here. And yeah, we'd love to get some questions pre-show so we can bring them up during the show, and we don't have to only talk about them post-show. Yeah. So hit us with some fire in that email inbox.
Thanks, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and check us out on audio where you listen to podcasts.
Peace.